morning. Hello, Jordan.
Hey, Bart.
Hey, so Caesars, South Indiana, right? Jordan is calling from Caesars, South Indiana. Is that right? Indiana.
Yep, and according to them, they are the Midwest's premier poker room.
So Caesars, South Indiana, and what game size are you playing?
This is a 2-5, 1,000 cap, half match stack, 8-handed.
1K cap, half match stack. So if someone has 3,000, you can buy in for 1,500. If someone has 4,000, you can buy in 2K, right?
That's correct.
Is that fairly strictly enforced?
Not really. I mean, a lot of times you could. I mean, I've seen at that room where someone will come over from the PLO game
Mm-hmm.
with like 3 grand and just sit at the table, even though no one has 6K on the table. So it's quite easy if you're moving tables to actually go north. Although I don't think people do it on purpose, but it ends up happening.
It's interesting just because, with match the stack, full match the stack, it's in essence like an uncapped game unless it's sort of at the beginning, but I've never really even seen it enforced. I've never really heard of, I've heard of it, half match. The fact that they're even saying it, I just wondered if it was enforced, and it's not surprising that it's kind of loose. Okay, so how deep are you? What's the effective stacks?
Effective stack's close to 1,000, maybe like 980-ish. I have the billing covered.
All right, cool. So 980 effective. Okay.
Everyone folds around to the button. The button opens to 20.
That's the standard open.
Kind of standard open,
Okay.
15 or 20.
Uh-huh.
Small blind, who's I tag as like a tight reg that's capable, but still kind of a typical 2-5 player.
Okay.
I've seen him call out of the small blind 2 or 3 times, but this time he raises to 75.
So I'm going to put him as tag reg 2-5, 3 bets to 75. Just two blinds, right?
Just 2 blinds.
Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I am in the big blind. I have king of hearts, king of clubs, and I 4-bet to 225.
All right. So 4 bet to 225 in position, by the way, from the 3 better. So button to 20, small blind 3 bets to 75, which is just under 4x. Hero to 225, which is a straight 3x. You're usually, like, I don't mind sort of larger sizing than theory in live play. In this particular setup, I actually think you could probably go smaller here. Here's the thing is that, like, you have position on this guy. I think it's somewhat of a wider configuration. And so what I mean by that is that he's obviously he probably is 3-betting a fair amount of hands, like way more than anywhere else in the field, right? So sure, you could do this even sometimes with somewhat of a polarized range here too, where you actually might have some 4-bet bluffs here with some blockers and things like that. With such a good hand and with how shallow you are in terms of how big the pot's going to go post, when you do a cold 4-bet, I've seen things that's like people cold 4-bet like as small as like 1.2x to like go to like 170 or something like that. I'm not talking about going that small, but even specifically in an unbalanced way with specifically with really good hands like aces and kings, I might just go smaller to like try to creep the guy in. If you went to say even 200 or like 180, you're going to approach the pot with like $400 in it. And you guys are only going to have like 750-ish to 800 left. It's really easy to get all the money in. Again, something subtle. I know there was a big Reddit post about some of my most common sayings. Subtle, 4-bet to 200, not 225. But I would just actually take it a little bit smaller, and I don't usually say that.
Well, I was thinking the same thing. I thought normally I would go 3x plus whatever, plus the 20 plus whatever's in there. And if I was out of position, I would do more like 4x plus the 20. But at our stack,
as a cold 4-bet, you would do that.
Yeah, because too many people will call in position as the 3-better in these games, and they typically have a hand. So I just want to get the max when I have the equity advantage, and I'm going to get 5-bet to aces with aces and probably be able to fold no matter what at that point.
So you're saying that you typically size larger than what might be theoretical on paper just because people call far too often, which makes sense.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And also with the cap size, like
Yeah.
against someone that is a bit tighter, like if we were 2,000 deep, I'd be more inclined to go to 250, 275. But I figured that if I went too big, I don't want to have like the SBR to be so small on the flop that essentially it's just there's really no positioning to like bet small at any point.
Okay. So you 4-bet to 225. Does the button get out of the way?
Yes.
Okay.
And a small blind call.
So button folds, small blind calls, and 450, 470, something like 475 to the flop, right?
Yep.
And you guys have 750 to 775 left, something like that.
Right. Something
Okay.
around.
Yep. Okay.
The flop is queen of diamonds, jack of diamonds, 8 of clubs.
Queen of diamonds, jack of diamonds, 8 of clubs. Hero's got king of hearts, king of clubs, and you have, like 1.5 SPRs going to the flop. What's interesting here is that, and this is for any time, like in any type of hand, because you have taken somewhat of a larger 4-bet sizing, even though you say that you actually even go larger than this normally, as a gut reflex, he is defending less when you 4-bet to 3x. So that actually means that his range is somewhat tighter. Like, it might not, I'm trying to think of the way that I could say this, because the thing is that if you went smaller, he's defending more, so he's going to have more hands. Here he's defending less, so he's going to have less hands. I mean, do you think that queen, queen, and jack, jack is just always called, I assume, to the 4-bet here?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I ranged him, especially since I've seen him call out of the small blind. I'm not just blindly assuming that he just plays a 3-bet or fold strategy out of the small blind.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he calls my 4-bet, like I range him on like 9s plus ace jack suited, ace queen offsuit plus, and maybe ace jack suited and ace queen off may not even be there. Maybe not even 9s is there, but it's like somewhere.
10s.
I don't think he has 9-10 suited on this board.
Right. No, 10s, something like that. So I guess what I was trying to say is that you might not see like the queen jack suited in here because you went to 3x, whereas if you had gone to 175, you might. So now you're just looking at what beats you here is like pocket queens, pocket jacks. I don't know if 8s is in there. I mean, you probably should be folding to a cold 4-bet. Maybe a fair amount with 8s out of the small blind, depending on how wide the guy is 4-betting. Do you think he might even have slivers of ace king off here? I know you've got 2 kings in
Oh,
your
yeah,
hand.
definitely. Definitely.
Well,
I figured that if he continues on this flop, it's more likely that he has gut shots, either top, middle, and gut shots with 9s, 10s, and ace king. And also the queen of diamonds and jack of diamonds on the board. So if it continues, it's kind of hard for him to have flush combinations unless it's the ace king of diamonds.
So I tend to agree with you, Cooper, that probably queens and jacks just call. I just want to read something here. Phase 1, I've never seen this guy in the live chat, says tags aren't just calling queen, queen, and jack, jack to cold 4-bets. Don't know what games you're playing in. I actually disagree with you, Phase 1, but the reason why I picked that comment out is that if they are 5-betting with those hands, then it's even a better spot for you, right? If they're 5-betting queen, queen, and jack, jack, because they don't have them. Anyways, I would if he checks to you, I would still bet. Then I think I would still probably bet on the smaller side because I think you're going to get called by a lot of those hands. You can get a lot of value from some of these hands: ace queen, ace king, 10s, and ace jack suited, things like that. And it's kind of interesting. Like if you bet and you get like played at, that's usually going to be a big hand or a big draw, and we can talk about possibly bet folding. But I like to just get value as early as possible. Did he check?
Yeah, he checks. And my thought process at this point at this SPR is that if I get value, it's a 2-street hand, no matter what. And the question is, where do I get my value? And I know that I can't. I shouldn't be betting 350 here.
Right.
I shouldn't basically be committing basically anything. I think anything over 200 essentially tells my opponent I'm willing to play for stacks. And it's quite possible. Like I don't want ace queen 9s and 10s to fold.
Well, let me ask you this question. Let me just throw this out at you. If it's a 2-street hand, right? And let's say that you're going to use the same sizing on the first street that you bet, whether it's the flop or whether you check back the flop, it's going to be the same sizing. Don't you think, though, that you'll get more frequencies of calls as the first street when the board only has 3 cards on it, as opposed to
I agree with you.
4 cards or 5 cards?
No, well, I thought of it. I mean, in a lot of these games, I mean, I've been listening to a lot of Mark Goon's
Mhm.
stuff, and so many people don't protect their check back range that other intelligent players
Mhm.
that thinking, I mean, I'm not saying they're good, but typically don't see people check ace, queen, kings, and aces on this board,
Mhm.
with it being like wet and semi-dynamic, that I feel as if this guy is good enough that he will not stack off with ace queen here because my perceived range is essentially queens plus, and he can't beat any of that other than my bluffs. So I decided if I was going to bet, it was going to be really small, something like 100,
Mhm.
or will I give him the option to at least bluff at the pot if I just check?
Well, I mean, I think that I would tend to start thinking about protecting my check back range, exactly what you're talking about, towards the higher stakes. I think it's something that I do commonly is give other players too much credit in a given situation. If I was playing a high stakes game, that would come into play like a much larger consideration in a spot like this. The other thing though too is it's a 4-bet pot, so there aren't really a whole lot of checkbacks anyways. You're supposed to actually be c-betting like a lot of boards. It's not like a single raise pot, you know what I mean, or even a 3-bet pot. So if you check back here, and that it's just very, very optimistic to think that a guy is going to try to suddenly bluff you off of what they might perceive to be ace king for 2 streets in a 4-bet pot with a hand that doesn't beat ace king. We have to actually come up with a hand that doesn't beat ace king in this particular spot, defending to your cold 4-bet. And then for him to swing for like his whole stack is very optimistic. That's why I would tend to not be overly concerned about checking back in this spot. Is that what you did? Did you check back?
Yeah, I check back,
Okay.
planning to bet the turn for about half pot
So now
on a
you're
bluff.
planning on betting the turn. Oh, okay. So the pot remains 475. Okay.
The turn comes out jack of spades.
So the jack of spades comes out in the turn. So now,
It doesn't change much other than the ace jack suited, which they were just 3 of, now there are just 2 of.
yeah. So you lose to ace jack suited, or if somehow he's got like king jack suited, right? Something like that. Look down at the suits. So the jack of diamonds is out there, the jack of spades is out there. You've got the king of hearts and the king of clubs. So you've got the opposite suits, which means there is no king jack suited. That comes into play. But there's 2 combos, obviously, of ace jack suited. And something like jack 10 suited. You might have, again, you'd probably see that more often if you'd used a smaller 4-bet sizing, I would say. I mean, it might creep in there once in a while. So what does he do? What happens here on the turn?
Well, he leads into me for 175.
All right. So small blind bets 175 in a 475. I think at this point, so if you call, again, I always like to do the math ahead of time here. The pot is, you're going to add 350 to the pot, so the pot's going to be 825, and you guys are going to have like
About 600 left, about
600 left.
575.
Okay. So do you call?
Well, I see no reason to raise here because, I mean, if I wanted to get value out of like some like ace king of diamonds or even nines or tens or like I don't even a min raise may not be called, and I mean then we're at the point where the SPR is ridiculous
Well,
anyway.
like I said, I mean, listen, I would do a lot of betting here on the flop. I don't necessarily agree with your check back, but as played, I think it's definitely a call now. And I would just say, so I assume hero calls. So now 350, so the pot is 825. Now, I don't know. Let me just go through some river scenarios here. Pot's 825, you have about like rare and 600 left or something like that, right? So what if the river's an offsuit deuce and he checks to you? Jamming, betting, it has to be a value bet, right? If he checks to you at the end.
Well, I was planning on getting 2 streets
Mhm.
on any hand that beats ace queen.
Mhm.
And as long as ace queen seems to want to call, and I just feel that a check in the middle instead of going bet or something like that, small, is that like my perceived range is queens plus, and it's just hard to get all of the chips in against someone that has to know that ace queen may not even be good in this spot. So that's basically the main reason of the flop check. If I would have bet the flop, I may have checked the turn on this jack
Maybe.
and then jammed the river
Yeah, maybe.
when checked to.
Yep. All right, so 825, queen of diamonds, jack of diamonds, 8 of clubs, jack of spades. Again, hero in the big blind as the cold 4-better went to 3x against the small blind 3-better against a button open. Queen jack 8, hero checks behind on the flop in position, turns to jack of spades, small blind bets 175, hero calls. We're at 825 with about 600 or so left. Okay, what's the river?
River is the 5 of diamonds.
So the front door comes in. Is that right?
That's correct.
Queen of diamonds, jack of diamonds, 8 of clubs. Turn is the jack of spades. River is the 5 of diamonds. I don't know how relevant really diamonds are here, though, right? I mean, with the
It's relevant, Bart. It's relevant only to the point in that either he is the ace king of diamonds,
ace 10 of diamonds.
or it gives him the opportunity to get more bluff equity.
Sure. No, I'm saying I don't know how much it scares. Like what I'm saying is I don't know how much it scares me, with the exception of a couple of different combos, like ace king of diamonds that just calls, and maybe some like ace 10 of diamonds. Those are, I would say that's pretty king. I guess it can be king 10 of diamonds too. Again, depending on how often he's going to defend to your 3. I mean, I guess it's a few extra hands maybe that beat you, but the pot's 825. Okay, now what happens here at the end?
Well, I was planning on jam here.
So if he checked here at the end, you were gonna bet.
Yes, I was gonna bet because I mean, would he check ace jack? Yeah. I mean, do I value on myself a portion of the time? Sure, but I think I have the best hand, and my hand to him could look like ace king, and it looks like a bluff enough at the time.
And here's I've gone through this, like, it's funny because I've gone through this quite a bit over the last few weeks. The call-in show, what do they call that? Like the live polarity paradox. And here, it's quite interesting here too, where the river's a 5 of diamonds, not necessarily the deuce of clubs, like the scenario that I had suggested. He checks, right? And now all of a sudden, let's say that you bet all in. He might think that you don't have a flush here. Here's the things that I think that he might think, that you're only betting a flush or a boat, and that you don't have those things because why wouldn't a flush draw just bet off on the flop like ace king of diamonds? It would have been like some big thing. So he calls you actually lighter, and then you show up with a hand that beats him that's not a flush or a boat, which is great for you. When I'm talking about the live polarity paradox, is like people think, a lot of times, like you would think, if you were bluffing here, let's say that you did end up with ace king and he checked you and you turned it into a bluff, you would think, oh, you would want to see you had ace king with the ace of diamonds, you didn't see bet. I'm just throwing a scenario out there. You would think, okay, well, would I rather see like an offsuit 5 if I have ace king with the ace of diamonds, or would I rather see the 5 of diamonds? In theory, you'd say, well, you'd rather see the 5 of diamonds because it makes it hard for the guy to call because he doesn't have flushes. My contention is you actually get called more often when the front door comes in, especially if you haven't played it in a way that would suggest that you had a flush draw. You might actually get more fold equity on an offsuit 5. That's the live poker paradox. But anyways, we don't even know if that's going to happen. What happens here on the 5 of diamonds?
Small blind leads all in.
I don't know, man. Jordan, you make your hand look a lot like ace king to me when you check back the flop. I mean, it's obviously better here if you had the king of diamonds, which if you had the king of diamonds, I don't think there's any way you can fold because of the fact that you cut some of the combinations of flushes out here. It just really, really looks like you have ace king here a lot to me. And I do wonder, what does this guy have for value here? Obviously, he could have pocket queens. He should really take ace jack suited. It shouldn't really change all that much. But the problem is that if you ever feign weakness in a hand, I mean, didn't you check back the flop to almost sometimes induce this a little bit?
Yep. I mean, that's exactly the purpose of why I did that, because a hand, this is someone that's capable of turning 9s and 10s into a bluff. And also, he knows that I'm capable of folding ace queen in this spot on a card like this, that he would think is a card like this. So, my attitude on the river was that either...
Let me just, I have to just stop you here for a second because I don't mean to pick on you, but if you put yourself in your opponent's spot, Okay. Would you bluff nines or tens here, given this entire action?
No, but I mean, I see it at 2-5 all the time.
And the reason why there would be no reason to bluff nines or tens here is because we think the other guy's got ace king a lot. We beat that, right? Because there isn't like that much of a check back rate. I just needed to say that. Yeah, man. I mean, the only time that I would consider folding here is just as an unbelievable exploit in override that it's 2-5 and a guy just never bluffs. But whenever I play a hand in a strange manner and I've feigned weakness, and then all of a sudden a guy, sometimes you've got what you wanted. Like I said, obviously you'd rather have kings with the king of diamonds here, but I think I'm gonna call if I get here like this.
Right. I just think that this type of player, if he had queens full on the turn or quad jacks or something, wouldn't bet 175. He'd just check to me if he thought I had ace king and hope that I catch up somehow. So it's like what hands do I not beat other than I need to be concerned that is he value betting ace jack suited, but there's only 2 combos of that. And there's so many more combos of either him having ace king or having nines and tens and turning them into a bluff that I mean, getting calling 600 to win 1420, I click in the call.
So again, I don't think that he should ever bluff nines or tens. It would be interesting if he has ace king off with the ace of diamonds and he doesn't think that many people check back over pairs on the flop on a 4-bet pot. If he actually is trying to get you off a chop, that's something that I might do with ace king. So he bets all in, hero calls. And what's the reveal?
Real 9 of diamonds, 9 of spades.
So he did bet 9-9 as a bluff?
Yep.
Well, I guess it's 2-5. I would mentally note that guy. And I would be like, what is he doing here?
Bart, I see it all the time. I mean, like I said before, in seeing a lot of Mark Goon's content, like if you check back at any, if I check back the turn here, if I bet the flop, check back the turn, people just say I have the best hand with nines, and people just bet for no reason.
So do you think he was betting for value then?
No, I think he may have been betting for value on the turn.
Okay.
And then when I called, it goes, oh no, maybe he has ace queen, and maybe I could bluff him off ace queen.
So weird though, because like again, I still think that like you have a lot of ace king sometimes as played here. So he's ahead of that. Even if you call, like say you played ace king this way, wouldn't you call the turn for 175 and a 475? I would think you would have to at 650 for 175. So it just doesn't make any, I mean, so it's like, okay, he value bets turn with 9-9 because he thinks he can get called by worse, by ace king. What changes at the end that he has to turn it into a bluff now?
Well, he sees the diamond that the flush draw comes in, and he could bet me off one pair. I mean, I'm just going by what I see playing, 30, 40 hours a week at 2-5 in these games. And people do the weirdest things when you feign a little bit of weakness that either you just get called way too often when you like over bet turns and rivers, or you get people to bluff it.
And Jordan, I'm not disagreeing with you or your observation. I'm just saying that it on the thought
on paper, it doesn't make any sense for him to do that. He should go check,
right?
Or check to induce me to bluff with ace king and just call.
Right. It seems like bluffing up front all in with a hand that can bluff catch would be the worst play right here with 9-9. Well, I appreciate it. You do, like I said, you see some strange stuff. Thank you very much for the call.